Hello guys and gals, and welcome to the second episode of Chapter 1. In this episode, we won't be coding anything just yet. Instead, we'll be familiarizing ourselves with some of the technologies we'll be using throughout this series. Keep in mind that we plan to make this an ongoing series, so future chapters might require other softwares that we might have not listed in the introductory chapter. We'll be using asides to adjust technologies and show examples of their use. Okay, so without any further ado, let's begin to talk. Here's our first aside of this episode. Aside, HTML. HTML, or Hypertext Markup Language, is a standard markup language that we use to build web applications. HTML defines the structure of our web document semantically. You can think of HTML as a skeletal system of the web document. HTML looks like this. Looks weird? Don't worry, we'll cover all these technologies in more details in their own videos or sections. Let's move on to the next aside. Aside, CSS. CSS, or cascading style sheets, allow us to style elements of our document and make things look a lot prettier. HTML only comes with a few style attributes and some unique styles for special elements like tables, but can get a little hectic and messy if you have a lot of elements. You can declare CSS externally with the link tag in the head section of our HTML document. Or you can call CSS in its own style element in the body of its HTML document. CSS looks like this. As you might be able to point out, we're simply selecting an element from our HTML document, then giving it a style attribute like width, height, and a background color. Let's move on to the next aside. Aside, JavaScript. We've already had an aside for JavaScript in a previous video, but you can think of JavaScript as any of your real-time functionalities. JavaScript brings static HTML documents to life and allows for client-side logic. Of course, you'll have to validate user inputs again in your server because JavaScript is easily accessible and editable in our client browser since it lives there. Our next aside is PHP. PHP, or Hypertext Processing Language, I know, doesn't really go with the acronym, is a server-side language we use to process data and build the business logic of our application. PHP isn't client-side, so we can't use it to manipulate the DOM on the fly like we can JavaScript, which runs in the user's browser. After the server, PHP, processes our requests, writes a corresponding HTML document, and sends it to our browser. Although we can't use PHP to manipulate our DOM on the fly, we can, however, embed PHP into our HTML document to print out variable data or even tell the server to show and allow access to certain pages or sections of our website depending on a condition. Embedded PHP looks like this. Awesome! We're up to speed on the languages that we'll be using throughout the series. Next, let's talk about our applications. For now, we'll only be needing one program that will allow us to host a local server onto our home computer. Our next aside is XAMPP, Apache Localhost Server. XAMPP is a lightweight program that allows us to host a localhost server within our own computer. We need a server because PHP needs a server that can understand and parse it to run. XAMPP is lightweight and completely free, but we won't be exploring it in this chapter. For now, we'll be fiddling around with HTML and CSS in the next episode of this chapter, so stick around because we'll finally be doing some coding. Thank you for watching and we hope you learned something new.